Well, they're looking for students who can work in a group. Right? They want people to be multidisciplinary, not specialists in just one area. They want them to be innovative. They want them to, when an employer comes to you and they want to see that you've thought about the next thing that needs to be done, not like you're waiting for something to happen or waiting to be told what to do. And there have been two big studies that have shown that, the SCANS report and America's Choice High Skills, Low Wages, which were two massive studies of employers that were done some years ago, and they both confirmed that that's pretty much, it's really a lot, it's like the skills actually that kids develop in preschool. There was just a study I heard on NPR the other night, 40-year study, kids in Battle Creek, Michigan, some had preschool, some didn't. Those who did have preschool had twice the wage rates and less incarceration rates, et cetera, et cetera. Same old thing. Everything I learned in kindergarten. Art should be central to all education, at least K through 12, and that's exactly what we do.
Well, it seems to me that in the end, art, within or outside the museum or gallery, is about creating a kind of reflectiveness about life. And certainly most of life is lived out in the world. Most of art was made for someplace out in the realm of the real world. And one of the things that's most wonderful is when you encounter art by chance in the course of daily life or unexpectedly, you're not coming with preconceptions about what it is, what it means, what it does, and you therefore can encounter it with a wonderfully open sense of possibility, really allowing it to operate directly. Yeah. Certainly, though, also art can be powerful at creating civic space, communal space, spaces of encounter, spaces of conflict in a productive way. I mean, it has immense power to do all of that. Well, it seems to me that one of the things that's great, there are many layers and many levels and many arts, but I'll talk about visual art for the moment, and much of it apply beyond. It seems to me that, first of all, one of the things that it does is to make you alert and observant. And that is something that we think we are, but we really are not. Most of the time, we couldn't really describe what the light was doing across the room, or, do you know what I mean, how the sun streamed in, or whatever. We're noticing a very small percentage of what goes on. So that, to begin with, is tremendously important, being simply attuned to everything going on. On the other hand, because it is a way of mulling things over, inquiring, communicating, and so on, I think it's a wonderful model because it invites error. And certainly most of our life is spent trying to avoid making a mistake. Inherently, you make something and you adjust it. And if you think you've done it right the first time, you probably haven't done much. You know what I mean? I mean, most, sketches leading to a final painting, revisions, and so on. It's a very good model for how mostly things get better. You get things more right. You get things more purposeful. And so I think it really, I think it teaches immensely important life strategies, actually.
Because I think that art education doesn't have to be an end in and of itself. I mean, it's not because you necessarily want to become an artist or a performer or something, or an art teacher, but it adds to your level of creativity, to your ability to think out of the box, to your ability also to do problem solving. If you are taught to the test, very often you are much more oriented toward memorizing materials, and that is a real handicap in real life, because most employers right now arrive at the realization that that new crop of young people who are taught to the test really don't know how to think, how to reason. And again, I think it's the same thing that at play, when you give kids something ready-made versus having them develop their toy or develop a game or something, they start reasoning, they start creating, they start deciding how they are going to go about it. So it's when you are creative, you could be an accountant, which is always viewed as being very narrow in how you apply, your mind. But good accountants have to be very creative. The one ahead have to be creative. They have to find solution. So even in very rigid profession, creativity and developing that mind, that ability to think with both sides of the mind is extremely important to good results. In arts education, I think the curriculum is really what has dictated, and the economy, of course, has been dictating what is lacking. And what is lacking, it doesn't have necessarily to be more, let's say, drawing classes or performing classes. No. But at the same time, for example, if you teach mathematics by showing people how to draw some of the answers, if you teach biology, like my late husband was always flunking biology, and they found out that he never really was outside of the campus when he was in high school, but he loved to draw, but he would always skip biology because he hated it, until he had a professor who was very astute and said, why don't you draw your answers? And he went from F to A+ immediately, because suddenly he was interested. So instead of having to memorize something, he suddenly lived it, he felt it, and he could express it in a way that was natural to him. So we are right now experiencing also something that is very dangerous, is that a lot of kids who cannot learn to the test are starting to fail, and fail miserably because they feel inadequate. So they don't go to school as a result of it. They drop out. A lot of those kids, sadly, very often turn to be juvenile delinquent, and then, progress in a very unfortunate way, because they have no resources to express themselves. It hasn't been developed. And if you look, some of our greatest leaders in the private sector, let's say, for example, Bill Gates or a lot of those people have not gone to college or dropped out of college. And I think you take, for example, Apple, and look at the impact of the design has had. It's very powerful. So you're talking business, but you are talking also creativity in terms of expressing the product. For example, I think that Target, having used now some architect to design some product line, understands that people should have an option and understand what good design is all about. So good design is not just for designer. IKEA is another example where now we have more choices about making choices about design in our everyday life. So we are talking business juxtaposed with art, and design is extremely important and valuable to the private sector. By promoting public-private partnership between the government, the private sector, and different segments of the private sector and academia, I think we might be able to restore something that now is kind of eviscerated basically from the curriculum.